Hi, everyone, and welcome back to The Break. After we talked about the road reopenings of Connecticut and New York, but we are now back with a video on New Jersey entering stage 2 of the reopening. So for those of you who may not know, I'm Clare Irvine. I'm PI's Government Affairs Counsel, and I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Government Affairs, Brad Lachut, to get into the details of what New Jersey needs to know for their entering stage 2.
Great. Thank you very much, Claire. Yes, the road back, stage 2. Yeah, it's as you mentioned, we've done a couple videos on New York and Connecticut already, and those are very helpful because all the states are kind of doing the same thing, but there's these little nuances that are important to point out because they do change things a little bit. So we're going to be getting into that today. Quickly, we're going to be covering first who was closed, who was required to shut their business down basically when this all started. Now that we're entering stage 2, who now gets to open their doors back up and what does that mean? And then finally, probably the most important, the meat of it, what do businesses have to do to reopen safely and operate safely for both their employees and for customers? So first things first, let's start at the beginning. Who had to close in order to kind of fully understand who can get to reopen? So this goes back, way back, I think to March, if you guys remember that. It seems like it's been, I think, 15 years ago. Governor Murphy issued Executive Order 107. I think right now we're on 152. So there's been a lot of executive orders between then and now. So if you don't remember this one, you're forgiven. That one is really the big executive order, required all businesses, and I mean that all businesses, to reduce their in-office staff as much as practical. And that's the way that this was worded, not very clear like in New York where we had a 100% workforce reduction. Pretty clear, unless you were in essential business, and I'll get to that in a second, for New Jersey, you had to clear out. Basically, New Jersey is not that case. They required all businesses, whether you were deemed essential or not, to reduce in-office staff as much as practical. That meant the businesses didn't have to go 100% remote, but they could have a skeleton crew on site if they wanted to, but most workers should be working from home. So that's a slight difference than what we've seen in other states, but an important one because it matters for the reopening. So in addition to that order, all businesses need to send employees home. All non-essential retail businesses were required to close to the public. So that leads to the next difference here in New Jersey. New Jersey didn't say essential and non-essential businesses. They said essential and non-essential retail businesses. It's a small distinction, but an important one because of what it means for the business. They had to close to the public, not close their doors entirely. This impacted agencies in that agencies were considered non-essential retail businesses. So an agency could still have staff, could still carry on their normal day-to-day. They just could not have clients or potential customers coming through the door during this period of time after Executive Order 107 was released. So again, in-office staff, fine, couldn't have anybody coming in from off the street. Essential retail businesses, which would be places like grocery stores, gas stations, importantly liquor stores, things like that, were allowed to stay open to the public, but also had to adhere to that in-office workforce reduction, if that makes sense. So again, some slight differences to what we've seen in other states that make it a little more complicated and take a little while to figure out what's going on. So where are we going now that we've entered stage 2? This is Executive Order 150. So again, we've got a few executive orders in between that. This was released just earlier this month on June 3rd and allows certain non-essential retail businesses, like insurance agencies, to reopen to the public on June 15th. They will be permitted at that point on June 15th to allow limited in-person retail. Some businesses will be more impactful than others. Insurance agencies, probably not as much. You can now open to the public, but how much public were you having coming through? It's not like it's a arts and crafts store or something else that wasn't considered essential before, but which is now allowed to open. The key here with this reopening is while you're allowed to reopen to the public, your workers should still continue to work from home as much as practicable. Now, there's a general understanding that if you open to the public, you probably will need more people in your office to handle the customer flow through the office. But still, those that can work from home should. So if you have like a bookkeeper or something like that who's not going to be interacting with the public, let that person work from home. So that still is in place. important, because people think, all right, we're getting to reopen, everybody comes back into the office. That's not the case. Reopening only means reopening to the public, in terms of having the public at large come into your office space, not your employees. They should still, again, continue to work from home. I know I've mentioned that before, but it is very important to reiterate, because this is different than some other states that we've dealt with. Now, the New Jersey Department of Health has released guidance for non-essential retail businesses that they must follow in order to safely reopen. It's a lot of things that you might expect. Look at it right now. First on the list here, and I should mention, these are all requirements that essential retail businesses have been following already. The Department of Health really just said, hey, non-essential, just follow what those guys have been doing. So you may have seen this before. Your clients might have been following this already, but now insurance agencies should be following this as well. First thing on the list here is limit occupancy to 50% of maximum store capacity at one time. Now that means don't divide your number of employees in half. Basically look at the certificate of occupancy that a building has based on fire code or whatever it was, and then cut that number in half. So for example, if your building is coded to have 50 people in it, and you have 25 employees, you could bring all 25 employees back, hypothetically speaking. You just couldn't have anybody else come into your office. Again, using that same number of 50, let's say you have 10 employees, all 10 can be in, and then you could bring in customers as well. They would just have to be limited to up to that occupancy number. So again, it's not based on your total number of employees, it's based on your occupancy or certificate of occupancy for your building. So again, different. Remember that when you're thinking about bringing people back in, and also how many customers you can have in an agency or a business at one time. In addition to that, in non-essential retail also has to establish special hours of operation specifically for use by higher risk individuals. So those people who might have a pre-existing condition or be above a certain age. You've seen probably many grocery stores have done this, from 6 to 7, anybody above 65 can come in and shop. So agencies should do that as well. It could be that you open it up at 8, we'll make sure that 8 to 9 period is only for senior customers, that sort of thing. It does not have to be a big long time, but make sure that the hours are there and they are posted and people know about them. Install physical barriers such as shield guards between customers and employees. This guidance is probably more for your typical retail businesses as opposed to an agency. There's probably not a situation so much an agency is going to have to put up a shield guard, perhaps for your receptionist. That's probably the focal point for your office in terms of people coming in. So maybe there you want to have appropriate shielding, but for the most part in an agency, I don't think this is going to come into play, but be aware this is a requirement. If it would impact your agency, you should erect these guards, or at least make sure that people are standing 6 feet apart. Some of these things are kind of obvious: regular hand washing, proper coughing and sneezing etiquette, probably things you learned in kindergarten. Throw your tissues in the trash. Again, regular hand washing, or provide employees break time for hand washing, that sort of thing. Basically make sure your office is clean. Set up contactless pay options. Now, agencies might have already an advantage here in that many insurance agencies were required to set up this sort of contactless pay option when the New Jersey moratorium was released last month or the month before. One of the requirements was that clients weren't supposed to pay in person, so they had to set up some other options. So if you've got those already, great. If not, set those up so you can have clients pay online or by check, by the mail, whatever, so they don't have to come into the office. In addition, provide hand sanitizer for staff and customers alike. Frequently sanitize the office, all things that you would think of. One thing to mention here towards the end is, as far as the safety equipment that a company would provide, they're required to provide both employees and customers, or require employees and customers to wear gloves and face coverings. I'm sorry, employees have to wear gloves, clients don't, I guess could. Employers, have to provide those gloves and face masks to their employees. They do not have to provide them to customers or clients. If a business is requiring masking and a customer refuses to wear one, a business isn't within their rights to deny entry to that client or to that customer. So you do not have to let somebody into your building if they refuse to wear a mask. You similarly do not have to provide that person with a mask if they don't have one, but you certainly can if you want to. In addition, you're going to maintain the 6 feet apart that everybody's very used to now, the social distancing. You can also put markers around your office, tape arrows around, showing what 6 feet is, so people can stay apart, especially if there's areas where people tend to congregate. Think about the kitchen, again, the reception desk where you might have a line building up, things like that. Those are all steps that a business should take in order to ensure that they can safely operate. This doesn't have to be a big expensive thing. As we've talked about in some of our other videos, tape on the ground works. You don't have to erect some sort of big flashing sign. Tape will get the job done. In addition, you should post signs around the office indicating the importance of social distancing and staying 6 feet away from other individuals. Again, those can be just printed off from your computer. They don't have to be any sort of big production. So pretty straightforward stuff. Wash your hands, make sure everybody's 6 feet apart. Employees and customers should wear masks. Keep your building at 50%, the Cliff Notes version of it. There will also be links in this video to the guidance from the Department of Health, so you can look at it yourself. Again, the guidance is for all non-essential retail businesses, so there'll be certain things that aren't really applicable to agencies, but still good to know, so you know what you have to follow and also what your clients might have to do, because I'm sure you'll probably get questions about that as well. If you do have any questions on any of this, as always, you reach out to Claire or myself, probably Claire, or the Resource Center. We'll be happy to answer any questions on this. Obviously, this is a big thing for our members to be able to reopen to the public again. So there's probably a lot of questions how to do it safely. Hopefully this video helped you a little bit. If you need more assistance, please reach out to us. That's what we're here for. With that, I'm going to open it up to Claire for a little bit of back and forth here, discussion, questions. What do you got?
I guess with the New Jersey's requirement about the glove wearing is different than the requirements we've seen for agencies in other states. Do employees have to wear gloves all the time in the office, or just when in a position where they'd be interacting with the public?
That's a good question, because you're right, it is a gloving, is that the right word? I don't know. It is kind of unique to New Jersey. And again, as I mentioned before, wearing gloves is for the employees, not so much the clients. I think that the point of the guidance is that so those masks and gloves are worn when you're dealing with customers or can't adhere to the 6 feet. I think if you ask somebody at the Department of Health, they'd say, please wear them all the time if you can, but realistically, you're probably not going to have employees wearing their gloves at their desk while they're typing. If they're going into the kitchen, if they're dealing with customers, those are the times they probably should be wearing gloves, again, to reduce the risk of spreading the virus and to make sure that the surfaces that you should be cleaning frequently under the guidance stay clean.
So people, if you're at your computer, you potentially can take off your gloves without posing the same risk.
Exactly. Basically, use your common sense. You know, if you're dealing with yourself, you know, you don't have to wear the gloves, but if you're going out and you're interacting with other people in the office, probably throw the gloves on, you know, when you're heading to the bathroom or when you're going to the kitchen or going to the machine.
Yeah, using common sense is a pretty good rule of thumb in this situation.
Yeah, if you're looking at some equipment and thinking that's probably pretty dirty, throw a glove on, basically.
Yeah, maybe wipe a Clorox wipe over it first.
Exactly, which employers are required to provide, those hand sanitizers and wipes. So use those liberally.
Yes, definitely. And a lot of these New Jersey requirements really focus on customer interaction, but for employers who are starting to at least prepare for when more employees can come in, or even bring back employees due to not being accepting retail customers, what can they do on the office side? Where can they find guidance on the office side for reopening?
So the guidance is the same. What we just looked at in terms of what employers have to do in order to make sure they're safe. Now, once that 50% capacity gets lifted and employees can come back, you're still going to want to adhere to the same thing. Make sure, again, 6 feet apart. So if you have desks that are facing each other or touching, move them apart. Utilize a meeting space that you might not be able to utilize now because you're packing people into a room, and use that for office space. Things that I think that you've covered before, Claire, in some of our videos. Again, there are links to those. You can click on those for more information on what you can do to safely reopen your office when you have all employees come back. But basically, again, it goes to the common sense Make sure you're not packing people all into one space. Erect, cubicles, put them in there, space people out, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess people will be able to tell when those limits are lifted, when the backdrop of our videos no longer has like an air conditioner.
Right, exactly. And this is a little bit buried in the lead. New Jersey just did release, lifted their stay-at-home order, which basically means now people can go outside and it's okay. And I know there are restrictions under the stay-at-home order, limiting the amount of people that can gather both inside and outside. I think it is 25% of capacity. Now be aware that is a different number, right? So what businesses need to be aware of is the 50% capacity for in-office or for non-essential retail. That other number is going to be more for public gatherings that are going to happen indoors, not so much for the retail business. So if you see that 25% out there, don't get confused. It's 50% capacity that you want to be paying attention to.
Yeah, and for all situations, still get in the habit of bringing your cloth face covering.
Absolutely. Make sure the mask with you all the time.
Yeah. Time to buy some cool ones, because
exactly.
you're going to be wearing them for a while.
They absolutely have them. I'm going to get my Star Wars lunch soon, I'm sure.
That's great. That's all I have on this topic.
Perfect. Well, I hope everybody found this informative. Again, there's a lot of information. We try to give it to you in a bite-sized nugget here. If you have further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we will be having further videos of the break on COVID, of course, and how to deal with bringing employees back, what that means for the agency, what that means for your clients, EPLI issues, things like that. So stay tuned for more information. That will be coming out shortly. And thank you, everybody. And thank you, Claire.
Thanks.